it's Angel, and we're back with Raising Energy on Rogers TV Round Table. And I have a very special guest tonight that I am excited to talk to and to explore this wonderful world of psychic and intuitive ability with. This is Cynthia Fontaine. She is an amazing reader who I've had the privilege to work with on Clubhouse and social media. I am going to be working with her tonight and getting to know her tonight. And I think I'm going to turn it over to her tonight because I know she can totally hold her own. So you're not going to hear a lot of me tonight, but this is Cynthia Fontaine. Cynthia, tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and why you love what you do.
Oh, hello, Angel. Thank you so much. I'm really thrilled to be here. Thank you for asking. I've loved working with you on Clubhouse and on social media, and I'm really excited about this show. So I'm known as the kick-ass psychic medium, and I am a psychic medium, master healer. I have a lot of sort of tools in my basket, if you will. Those are the primary ones, but I have a lot of other things that I do, including professional clearing and past life regression. I've been doing this work for a long time. May 16th will be my 40th anniversary from when I channeled my first message. Wow. And so I'm kind of excited about that. And I think I might do like a 40th celebration.
Yeah, you should. That's huge.
Yeah, I think so. It's interesting. It's been an interesting ride for sure. So I work with people and pets as well. When I actually came out of the psychic closet, I didn't want to work with people. So I was born with this gift, and I grew up knowing that I had it. And I spent a lot of time with my grandparents growing up because my grandmother also did this work. And when I was 15, my grandmother's teacher passed away, and my grandmother said, oh, her gifts will be passed on. And I thought they would come to me because I spent a lot of time at her teacher's house growing up. And, we had a special relationship. And my grandmother looked at me and said, it won't be you, you're too young. And I went, fine, because I don't want to do this work.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, looking back, it is pretty funny, but I never lost interest. And in my grandmother's kitchen 4 years later, I went into a spontaneous trance and channeled her teacher for 40 minutes.
Oh, wow.
I had no idea what I said. And when I came out of it, my grandmother's face was completely white. And I said, oh my God, what just happened? She said, TL Dina was here. And I knew as soon as she said that it was important. Otherwise, she wouldn't have done that. But because I had this special relationship with her, the connection for me was there to be able to channel her. And especially since it was the first time I had channeled, it would have been tricky if I hadn't known her. And so anyway, that it did kind of freak me out a little bit, because I said, if somebody I know can take over my body and I have no idea what I'm saying, what about somebody I don't know?
Yeah. And when? And it's that whole idea of too, can it happen spontaneously? So how did you deal with that?
Well, so I started studying more with other teachers. I studied with 2 Native American chiefs, and I also studied with a sacred pipe carrier with a Mi'kmaq tribe.
So before you go on, let's let our audience know, where do you live? Where are you from? Where did you explore all of this?
So I'm in New England, and I would go to upper state Maine to do this work, to do these studies. And so I started that, studying that in that spirituality and that point of view and everything, and did a lot of sweat lodges and things like that, and learned my first healing with Chief White Eagle. And he was from New York, but he would actually come down to Rhode Island. Mm-hmm. And so I learned my first healing with Chief White Eagle. And so that started the outside teaching outside of my grandmother's teachings. And then I just started reading everything I could get my hands on. Of course, Sylvia Browne, because she was the leader in making this, sort of bringing it into everyday life, if
Forefront.
you will.
Yeah. She brought it into modern forefront. She brought it into the
Yes.
media even.
Yes. So I started studying Sylvia Browne and everything I could get my hands on, really. And I actually met Sylvia Browne years later. So it was exciting to meet her. And but the real work didn't start until about I say the real work. I didn't want to do the work because of a couple of things that have happened. One of the things was I was seeing a card reader, and I was going to this card reader every single week. And my grandmother, all she said to me was, "You're going too much," and wouldn't tell me why. And I'm a person, you have to give me the details. Tell me why. I need to know why that is. Don't just tell me you shouldn't go that much. So I was seeing this card reader, and the card reader kept telling me that my then husband was going to die in a car accident.
Oh, I remember this story. This is amazing for our viewers to hear, because it really is the whole concept of how much power psychics can actually have over us at the time, and what we should listen to, what we shouldn't listen to. So this is actually a wonderful story. Please.
Yeah, thank you. Absolutely. I tell this story because I think it's important for people to understand about not giving away their power to a psychic or any other authority for that matter. And so, I didn't know ethics around this work back then. And so every week I'd go back, and then I got into a car accident driving my then husband's car. And the woman that I was in the accident with me died. And I went back to the woman, and I said, the card reader, and I said, "This has to be what you saw." And she said, "It's not. Your husband is still going to die in a car accident." And I initially went to see her because when I married my then husband, I didn't realize that he had a drug and alcohol problem. And I went to look for guidance. What do I do with this? And so it was very believable that he likely could die in a car accident. He actually had 5 alcohol related accidents in a 1-year period, several times with my son in the car. So that's why I started seeing her. That was in 1989. My then husband is still quite alive.
I was gonna say, oh, to your chagrin, but you know what? I won't.
Right. Well, it's interesting, and it taught me some very important lessons. One is that if anybody predicts death, walk away. They are not the person for you.
Well, that's it. And when people actually ask me about death, even if I see it, I not only not say anything, because I know it's changeable, right? Exactly. I know that the future, there's predetermination, and then there's freedom of will. How we navigate things can elongate life. It can actually make it shorter. So I'm reluctant. I think the only time I ever did that was a woman. She was 90 something years old, and she knew she was going to pass.
Yeah.
And she came in just looking for the permission to pass.
Yes.
And her husband came through, her brothers came through. So I think that's one of the very few times. So I agree with you.
Thank you. But that's an important situation that you just explained about the woman that was in her 90s looking for permission to pass, because sometimes our loved ones are looking for permission to go.
Yeah.
And I can share an example with you with a client who after my brother suddenly passed away, and one of his neighbors took his cat because I couldn't take her. I took the dog, and her mom had been in a coma for 5 months. And they didn't know why. The doctor said there's no reason why she should still be here. We don't understand. And she called me up one day and she said, "Do you think you could talk to my mother?" And I said, "Well, I can talk to dead people. I can talk to cats and dogs and horses."
Why not someone in a coma?
Why not somebody in a coma?
Yeah, I just had this recently. Go
Yes.
on.
So I said, let's give it a try. So I went, and it was it was a beautiful experience for me and the family. Her dad and herself were there, and her mom wanted somebody to witness her life. And she took me through the whole thing, from being in the garden as a child in the white, beautiful dress, coming over to America when, when she was younger. And she was an incredible, talented artist. And she actually started the art guild in the town that they lived in.
Oh, nice.
And yeah, it was really, really, she's been a really fabulous contributor to the art world, in my area. And so I probably spent maybe 45 minutes with her channeling the messages, and then another 45 minutes or so with the daughter and the dad. And she was worried about her husband because he was eating way too many cookies, and that he wasn't cooking for himself. So he was eating a lot of junk food. So she was concerned about that. And she wanted to be buried in a particular blouse, which when I gave the description of the blouse, her daughter said, I know exactly where it is. It's in the closet in the other room. Mm-hmm. And that was at about 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And she passed away at 4 o'clock that morning.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. It's so funny that you're saying that, because I had recently a few cases like this actually, but one of them that stands out was very similar in that, this person who was in the coma just wanted the family to know that, they're going to be okay. Right. Mm-hmm. And he just wanted to make sure they understood that, and it was okay for them to let go. And it was an amazing, I find I'm so honored and privileged to be able to do the work I do. But I have a question for you.
Yes.
This is something that's been ruminating in my head for a while, because I was actually on YouTube today watching other animal communicators, and I know you have a communication story for us. And I was thinking to myself, wow, they're so incredible, like it's so, do you ever doubt your ability? Do you ever have moments of doubt?
Not anymore, but I did for a very long time. Yeah. And especially when I was going to work with a group, because I'd say, oh God, please let something come through, or new clients even. And so early on, I did have a lot of doubt, but time after time after time, the information would come. And it's interesting because I would get like bubbles starting 2 days before, and I would start getting messages. As soon as an appointment was made, 2 days before the appointment, I would start already getting messages. And at one point I stopped getting that bubbly feeling and getting the messages 2 days before. And I said to Spirit and my guides, I'm like, okay, what's the story? Because the event is like right here. And they're like, oh, you don't need that anymore.
That's interesting you say that. When I started with cards, and I would just intuitively read. I would drop them and they would tell me the story, and we would have a conversation. And as I would get stronger and stronger, I started to realize that I didn't even have to pick up the card before I knew which card was coming. And I already had the reading even before the card dropped. And it was so exciting on that day that I forgot my deck at home. And I had to release that fear and that anxiety. And I think for anybody out there who is, either thinking about being on this path or who is new on this path, I think doubt is something that's it's very real, and it's something that's going to be there for a long time. But I agree with you, it dissipates. I still have my moments. I mean, I've been doing this for, I think, about 20 plus years, so only half the time you have. So I'm still a baby in comparison. But you're lucky too, because you actually were raised with this, right? Yeah. Whereas for me, the opposing was that I had people in the family who are like me, but this wasn't necessarily nurtured. It was just something that happened in the family, right? That we witnessed. So tell us about, because you're also an animal communicator, which is exciting to me. I always love meeting people like this. Tell us how you discovered, tell us the story of how, I love the story, how you discovered animal communications.
Well, it's kind of a funny story.
It is.
I worked for the government for 26 years delivering mail. And Spirit kept giving me the clues that it was time to get out and do this work. And I didn't want to do that. And so I had an injury that put me out of work completely for 18 months. And then it took me out of my job for over 2 years. And so I could not drive for the first 6 months at all. And when I finally got the clearance to drive, the doctor said, okay, you can drive 10 minutes. That's all. So my daughter rode horses on Saturdays at a barn that was exactly 10 minutes from our house. And her grandmother had been driving her all the time while I couldn't drive. And I said, oh, I can't wait to get to the barn. As soon as I got the clearance, I took my daughter to ride, but then I couldn't drive back home. I'd have to wait. I'd lay down on they had bleachers outside the riding arena, and I'd lay down on the bleachers. And so one day my daughter needed a crop, and she was out in the outdoor ring. And so I said, well, I'll go get it. So I got up and went into the barn to get the crop. And I'm walking through the barn and I hear, hey, and I spin around looking for someone, and there's nobody there. And I thought, oh my God, I'm taking too many painkillers, or I'm losing my mind.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it.
I got the crop and then came back through the same way that I had walked in. And I hear, hey, I don't like my new name, but I can't, oh God, I'm trying to think now. It was so long ago. Did he say, I like carrots and cats? Oh no, sorry, cows. I like cows and I like cats. And there's one horse in the barn and no people. And the horse is looking right at me. And I said, oh my God, did you say something? He says, yeah, I don't like my new name, and I like cows and I like cats. And I went, oh my God, I'm really taking too many painkillers. Now, I didn't know this horse because he hadn't been there 6 months before, but the girl who just bought the horse was there that day. And I went to her after I delivered the crop and I said, oh my God, and she gives me permission to share this story. And so I said, Beckett, did you change Bandit's name when you got him? And she said, oh yeah, his name was Texas Rose and I didn't like it. So I changed it. I said, I think you want to change it back. And then I said, has he ever seen cows or cats? She said, oh yeah, he lived on a cow farm and he had a cat that was his best friend that lived in the stall with him. That's how the animal communication began.
That is such an incredible story. I love that story. I remember when I started animal communications, I went to a class that I was dragged to, and I went there with the intention to disprove it. I was just like, there has to be a limit somewhere. And by the end of it, this turtle actually convinced me otherwise. So it's amazing our animal communication stories and how we evolve from that first moment to where we are now, because now you are famous. In fact, so famous that you have 2 books coming out. One is a compilation, one is a solo book. And can you tell us a little bit about this? And then when we come back from our break, and I don't know how much time we have, but when we come back for a break, I have some other questions for you. But for now, tell us about your books.
Well, thank you so much. So the first book is actually already on pre-sale, and that is The Powerhouse Voices of Clubhouse. And I was so thrilled to be asked to be part of that book because Clubhouse really has been a game changer for me. And it's really made me I chose to step out of my comfort zone. And my book that's coming up following that is because of Clubhouse. And the title of that book is Psychic, Didn't See That Coming. And
I love it.
So that will be up on my Amazon page probably within the next 2 weeks for pre-order. And so the story that I have in the Clubhouse book is actually sort of an intro of what you'll expect in the Psychic Didn't See That Coming book.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. I love it. So congratulations on that.
Thank
So
you.
I've been told we still have lots of time. So I want to ask you, do you have favorite moments? I mean, you have 40 years worth of stories, and there must be one or two stories that stand out to you that that are gamekeeper, like game, just memory keep. I don't know where my words are, but for me, I have, those ones that stand out. Do you have anything that stands out for you?
Gosh, I have so many. One, so I have this woman who I got friendly with her when I still delivered mail. She worked at the first stop of my route. She was worked for the city, and we got friendly over the years and got to know each other. And she came to one of my classes. I believe she had retired at that point, and it was a 5 or 6 week class. And what I didn't know was that she was in a very difficult place in her life. Her husband had passed away, which I had known that, but she was in a place where she was actually considering exiting the planet.
Hmm.
And I was unaware of that. And she emailed me when the class had finished and said, I can't thank you enough because I would not have been here if it weren't for coming to your class, because I was going to take myself out.
Wow.
Yeah. And that
How
for
profound.
me, and that was so meaningful for me because I had the same situation in my own life where I what had was gonna I was on the verge of taking myself out. And I said, and a counselor is not going to fix this fast enough. I need to find a really good psychic.
Hmm.
And that was really reaching out for me, stepping over sort of like the line that I hadn't crossed since that card reader.
Right.
And I started searching the internet because I didn't know anybody at the time. And I see this woman who's touring with Sylvia Browne. And I go, oh, well, if she's touring with Sylvia Browne, she's got to be pretty good. And
Yeah.
I email her office. And what I didn't know was her waiting list was 6 months long, which
Wow.
expanded to be 2 years long.
Wow.
And I said to her assistant, can you please put me on a cancellation list? And if there's any cancellation, I'll take one anytime, day or night. She messaged me the very next day and said, oh, she has an appointment on Thursday at 8:30 in the morning. Would you like it? And I
Wow.
said, yes, wow is right. And that's going to be in my book. And so I got the appointment at that time. This is a very famous psychic. And her name is Colette Baron Reed. She's
Oh,
a
yeah.
big Hay House author and teacher. Yeah. And so Colette had just been picked up by Hay House and was touring with Sylvia Browne. And they, at that time, you got Colette's phone number. And they said, if she doesn't call you at the time, call her. So 8:30 comes and goes, and 8:35 and 8:36 and 8:37, I finally call her. And she picks up the phone. She says, oh, I'm so glad you called. I couldn't find your number, blah, 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 blah. And she starts laughing. And I thought, oh my God, I've picked somebody who's like, crazy. She's a lunatic. But through the laugh, it's a funny story. Through the laughter, she says, oh my God, you're devastated, but this is the best thing that could have happened to you. Not knowing who I was, all she had was my name and phone number.
Yeah.
And as soon as she said that, I said, okay, she knows
the real deal.
She's the real deal. She knows.
I have a question about that. Is Colette, I thought she was Canadian, but she's American, or is she Canadian, went to America?
Correct. She is Canadian and came to the States.
Yeah.
And then she's actually back in Canada.
She is?
She is.
How exciting.
Yeah, she's in Toronto. She bought an incredible property. Nice. And she actually for a while was here just like 2 hours from me, which was great. I would go and help her with her events, which, backing up a little bit, that first reading that I had with her turned into this amazing relationship. And I had a reading with her a year later, And then somehow when I was on her website, her classroom let me in. And I messaged her and I'm like, oh my God, I don't know what happened. She said, well, obviously you're supposed to be there, so stay. And
nice.
yeah, and then she brought me to and invited me to an event that she did, and it changed my whole life. Going from sort of not believing in this work to really believing in this work and understanding how important it is to do our own personal work, to have a clear lens that we look through, and to have really good, strong ethics. And so I studied with her for many, many years, and we're good friends now. And it's just, it's truly amazing. It's truly amazing. But
wow, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? When we come back, I have so many more questions for you. And one of them, actually, you could probably answer now. Do you read for yourself? We have 2 minutes. Can you, no, not can you, do you read for yourself?
So it's interesting because the traditional way that people understand to do a reading, you ask questions like, oh, is this the right decision? I read a little bit differently. I read prescriptively combined with predictively. So if I'm going through something, in fact, I pulled cards on something this morning. And the way I read for myself is I will ask, what do I need to know about this situation? What am I missing in this situation? And what's my right next action in this situation?
These are great things for people to understand and know.
Yeah, it's really empowering, because when we give away our power, again, whether it's to a deck of cards or to a psychic or to a healer or even to any authority, then I say it shortens the telomeres in our body, which is what is our life force.
And it also creates a codependent relationship, which is the antithesis of what we're looking at.
Absolutely.
All right. So when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more to Cynthia Fontaine, and we can reach her on Clubhouse at Cynthia Psychic, Instagram, Cynthia Fontaine _psychic, I believe.
Yes.
All right. And when we get back, we're going to have a whole lot more questions and a whole lot more fun. So stay tuned. Everybody, and we're back on Raising Energy on Rogers TV Roundtable, and we have a fantastic guest, Cynthia Fontaine from the United States, a wonderful reader and a wonderful animal communicator and a wonderful healer. And that's something I want to ask Cynthia a little bit about. You were talking earlier about how your first encounter with healing was with the Native Aboriginals in America, and what is that to you? What does healing look like to you? Like, how do you work and what is that for you?
Oh, that's a really great question. And it's very different now from what I was taught, 30 years ago. And the way that I was taught 30 years ago was actually, I was already familiar with the technique because my grandmother had talked about it. One of the ways that I was taught was you used the breath to pull things out of people's bodies. But what happens with that method is you pull in whatever you're pulling out of the person,
right?
And then you have to figure out how to transmute it.
Yeah, you have to know how to be able to release it yourself. Yes.
Right.
I've worked in the South American culture, and that's actually one of the ways I've been taught as well. So
yeah. So I did healing work like that for a long time. And then I went to healer school. And the
healer school?
I went to healer school.
What's healer school? What's that?
So I went to, it's a Barbara Brennan, 3rd generation graduate, Reese Thomas, and it's the Reese Thomas Institute of Energy Medicine in Massachusetts in the US here. And it came at a time where my life had sort of fallen completely apart, and I know I needed something. And I had been following this guy for years, but I could never get through a whole video because he was all over the place. And I went to a 3-day event that his then wife had done, and it was on tapping. And I had been going to this event for a few years, and she starts talking about the chakras and this energy. And I said, I don't know whose work this is, but I need to find out, because this is the missing piece to everything. And she, of course, said, this is Reese's work. And a month later, he had his 3-day weekend. I went to the 3-day weekend and I signed up right there, and I did 3 years in the program, and I did the master level, so I had graduated actually with 2 certifications from the school. And it's very different because it's a safer way to do healings. And I mean, I have dozens of different types of healings that I can do. Some are using the Chinese acupuncture meridian pathways. Some are working in the energy body. Some are actually working hands-on in the physical body. And so it was really a wonderful experience for me, and a really great program. And that gave me another level, or another foundation. And well, backing up a little bit, probably for about 10 years, I had been practicing Reiki. And I was a Reiki master, and I'd been practicing Reiki for about 10 years. And I also got certified as an angel healer. So I was doing the angel healing and the Reiki. And
that's what we do, right? We go from one modality to the next modality, and we collect tools. And this is what I always tell young healers and young psychics. It's okay if you're feeling Reiki this year, you work on it, you fulfill that till you plateau at that, and then something else will come. Don't feel guilty about moving from one, because you're moving, right? You're moving from one level and one vibration to another. So we have all these different tools in our kit when we become these, as you say, master healers. What is your favorite modality right now?
Oh, that's a tricky one. Well, because I enjoy my work so much. I really love working with people. I work with people on so many different levels, depending on where the client is when they come to me. One thing that I do use a lot when people come to me, especially when they're in crisis, is I might put them on the healing table. But maybe not the first time they come. But I almost always take them through an envision process, which is it's based on Carl Jung's work. And I was certified through the Master Coach Institute, which was Colette's institute before she opened Oracle School. And I use the envision process a lot with people. In fact, I took Tiffany Haddish through a somewhat of an aspect of the vision process on Clubhouse in February. It was really incredible.
Now, for those of you who don't know who Tiffany Haddish is, can you tell us?
Oh yeah, Tiffany Haddish is an award-winning Grammy Award, and I forget what other award she has, but she's an award-winning comedian. But she's also an actor, and right now she's on Proud Family, and she's been in all sorts of things. If you Google Tiffany Haddish, you will find so many things that she's done and been in.
So do you work with all walks of life? Anybody comes through your door and you just say, yeah, you know what, if you found me, then you're meant to find me?
Yes. The only time that I have turned someone away, this was a student. And this student broke some rules that for me are not acceptable. And one thing I'm really adamant about is you never go to people and say, you need a reading.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that I'm really a stickler about. The other thing is always know who you're working with in the spirit world. And you have to grill, when you have spirit people come in, grill them 1,000 ways with 1,000 different questions, and don't just take everybody at their word, because as is above, so is below. Here on the Earth planet, there are some people who are wonderful, and then there are some people that aren't so wonderful. Same in the spirit world.
Yep,
And
absolutely.
yeah, and she had a guide that came through. She thought it was a guide, and it turned out to be, it's an interesting story. We have a person in our community who doesn't walk the path of the light. And anyway, it was this particular person. And she came to me and I said, you've broken two big rules. Number one, she was just starting and she was already doing readings. And I didn't feel that she had enough experience to be charging people.
Yeah.
And she, had this experience and didn't vet this guide, this person that came to her in the spirit world. The other thing is, if somebody is actively using substance, if they're drinking, if they're using drugs, I typically will not work with them unless they are in a program and also working with a counselor.
Oh, see, that's a really interesting thing, because if I do have people who have addictions or people who have family members who are addictions, I have a team of people that I work with. So some of them are medicine people or counselors, or, I even have an osteopath who's a medical intuitive. So I will be shown, and I actually even have an Anishinaabe woman that I work with, a healer. So I always kind of tap in and just go, okay, you know what, this one's not for me, but I have someone for you. Right. So I always tell people that if I don't have the answers for you, I can't help you, I will find somebody or know somebody or somewhere that can. Right. And I think that's a really important thing to note is, we don't work in a bubble as readers and as healers. We have that network. We have our community and tribe that, support us the way we support them.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And same, where I have a group also that I will send. Okay, so this is the person that I would recommend that you go see for this or this person. Yeah, same.
Yeah. And I love.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I do work with a lot of individuals and families that have substance abuse within the family.
Right.
So I do that. And the family member doesn't necessarily have to be in recovery or be in therapy themselves, but I will work with the family who has that experience within the family.
Right. And I love the fact that, throughout this entire interview, you have really strongly talked about ethics. And I think that's huge. And that was actually what we were going to be doing on the weekend, but we're going to be doing it on another Sunday in Clubhouse. Is we're going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about not only ethics, but, fraudulent readers and how to spot them. And, what kinds of things do we look for in readers who are legitimate? So what kind of advice, with all the beautiful experience and knowledge that you have, what would you say to viewers who are looking to get a reading or looking to sit down with somebody like us?
Yeah, I mean, I would say check out their social media, check out their website, see if there's referrals, and video referrals are great, or testimonies rather, are great. If they have video testimonies, that's a fantastic tool. And then, ask somebody, hey, who would you recommend? What I will say, and there are two impersonators who are impersonating me right now, actually on Instagram. Yeah. And a client that I worked with yesterday actually fell for one of the imposters, and she dropped $300 with this person.
Oh my gosh.
So
the worst it got for me was that I had 5 accounts that were fake. Thankfully, they're all gone. But one of them, actually, she messaged me, my client, and she said, are you okay? And I said, yeah, I'm fine. Why? And she goes, because I was told that you were kidnapped this morning and they wanted $70 in order to get you back. I'm like, I'm only worth $70? Like, seriously? She goes, well, I guess I'm not getting my money back. And I'm like, I don't even know where to begin with that. So she ended up having to call the police and putting in a report. It's dangerous. And this isn't an individual who's doing these things either. This is organized crime. Like
Yes.
this
Yeah.
is huge. People don't understand this. This is
Yeah.
huge. Like and there are such earmarks too of finding those people that are fakes. So
Yeah.
yeah, I get that.
Yeah, it really is. And somebody who is really the real deal is not going to inbox you and
No.
say, hey, you need a reading. The
Yeah.
other thing is, if you are on social media, and say, for example, if I'm on Facebook Live, there'll be trolls in the chat that will say things like, hey, I can do a reading for you for $50. Don't fall for those. It's just somebody trying to take your money. And if somebody says, oh, you have a curse on you, I need $200 and a sock and a bar of soap, run.
I had a woman a long time ago at the beginning of my career. She came in, it broke my heart. And she told me, she said, this reader, she was scared of me. You could see she was shaking. I said, what happened? And she goes, well, this reader took $10,000 from me and all of my jewelry. And he said that I had a curse and a family. And that was the first time that I got really angry about it. Right. And we worked through that trauma. We worked through that kind of stuff. And it was a beautiful reading. In fact, it was probably one of my more amazing readings. She was so lovely. Even after all that trauma, she was still open. Right. And I've had that happen too. I had a palm reader give me all this information. She said that I had a curse on my family and she was the only one who could lift it. And luckily I knew the store owner. So I went to her and I said, look, I said, this is what this person is saying. And, I think that's something you need to be careful of. And the reality is it happens everywhere. And it's funny because the store was it's an amazing store. It's a wonderful store. And still you're going to find them everywhere. So I feel like referrals are the best way to go. Referrals.
I agree.
Yeah.
And when you find somebody that you love, refer them to people, because
Yeah.
then that helps everybody,
Yeah, I
And
agree.
it's funny that you have that story with a palm reader, because I had the same experience with a palm reader.
Oh, really? Yeah, I've noticed a lot of our stories are extremely similar.
Yeah.
The other thing that I was just thinking of too was, I can't remember now. There was a great question just popped up and it just went out of my head because I'm a Gemini and just the way it is.
I
So
understand, because I have a Gemini moon and things just fall right out.
yeah, like it's crazy. I really try though. It's like I told my fiance, I said, look, I'm not so great on this plane. I said, but I'm wonderful on the other. Like I'm just fantastic over there. So what kind of advice could you give those who are starting on the path, who are on the path? What would you say to them because that's a question as a teacher, as a host, that I get all the time is, how can I advance my abilities? What can I do to develop my intuition, my psychic abilities, with my healer within?
Mm-hmm. That's a really great question. And, it's one I talk about a lot. The best thing, actually, one of the best things is to focus on doing personal development work, doing inner child work, doing the healing work. Find out where all the things that you've experienced in your life, trigger you. And because when we clear up the clutter,
Yeah.
then it clears the lens which we are looking through. And a lot of people, don't understand that or realize that if you want to be the best that you can possibly be in this work or in any other work, to have the clear lens, you have to clear up your past.
Yeah.
Forgiveness work is key.
And I think too, the humility the humility to be able to reach out to others to do the work with you, to know, because that was one of my downfalls when I started. It was like, well, I'm a psychic and I'm a healer, so I can heal myself and I can do all the work. But the reality is again, this is how you create your tribe. Those people that you trust, is being able to know when to reach out, but who to reach out to. And here I am 20 plus years later, and I still have those people that I go to. I'm still, that's a process that's never ending, because I think we're constantly wanting to challenge ourselves to see how high we can go in this lifetime. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely, absolutely. And the work is never done. I am always working with a coach or other healers and things like that, because we can't do that work, the healing work and clearing up our stuff on our own. We need to do it with other people. So that's really
Fun.
it
And
is
it's
fun.
fun. You're going back to school. You get to sit back and not do anything for once and just kind of let somebody else take the reins.
Yeah,
You know?
absolutely. It is really, really fun for sure. And so I think that is really an important part of becoming clear and really building your psychic in a sense. The
Yeah.
other thing is start paying attention to the really subtle things out in the world, the everyday things. Like stop and listen to your environment.
Yeah.
Notice, what do you hear? Close your eyes and crinkle a newspaper and just listen to the sound. When we take it down to the simplest levels and we really focus and pay attention, it actually heightens our sensitivity and our psychic abilities.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that I teach is to start making a psychic dictionary, because since we all have our own life experience, things are going to mean something different for you than they are for me.
Right.
So I see the bear above your head. For a lot of people, that might be the scariest thing in the world. For
Right.
me, I see the bear and I see the power, and I know that's beautiful bear medicine.
And this is actually representative of my son as well. So there's that
Oh,
family connection because he is bear medicine. So you see that.
I see that. Yes, beautiful. And so when we start to build our own intuitive or psychic dictionary, if you will, we have a different meaning than if you just go and look up what a bear means. You
Yes.
have to understand what something means for you. Yeah. And so one of the first things when I first started doing medical intuition is my pediatrician would show up and I would see his round gold glasses and I would see his bow tie and I would see the space between his teeth. And I loved my pediatrician when I was a kid. He was just the nicest guy. And so he would show up and I'd say, oh, okay, there's a medical connection here. And so start looking for what your symbols are, right? And start writing them down, because you'll find that we all have different things mean different, something different for each of us.
Yes.
Yeah. And I get new symbols all the time, even though I've done this work for 40 years. And it's really hysterical at this point. I think, how much more is there?
But it's right, because that becomes our personal psychic language. Right.
Yes.
And it's a really important thing. Like for the longest time, I kept seeing motorcycles and I never made the connection. And so I said to my mentor, I was very fortunate. I had mentors that I could shadow my entire career, people who just asked me or allowed me to be a part of their world. And I used to see motorcycle and I said, I don't understand why I keep seeing these damnable motorcycles. And she goes, tell me about the person that you were reading. And I went, she goes, notice the connection to all of them. It's about speed. Right. And the color of the motorcycles directly relates to the reading. So I started to really make those connections. It's red. So yeah, this is speed, but it's angry or passionate speed. And pink is this. And, you get a black and a silver motorcycle. So it's amazing how accurate you are with that. That's so true. And it's subtle things. Right. Then we start to become subtle about that dictionary, the little things about the motorcycle, the little things about the tree, right? Is it an oak tree that we're seeing? Okay, so that's male. If it's feminine, it might be a willow tree, whatever the case might be. So I agree with that. And that's so great that you brought that. I don't think I've ever had a guest actually bring that up. So this is such a wonderful sharing for my audience, because I know that people, when they watch my show, they're wanting to learn, right? Mm-hmm. And that is a huge thing for me. Like even in my readings, have you ever noticed with your readings that it's not just a reading, there's always a learning attached to it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's part of the prescriptiveness, right? Where I give homework.
Yeah. Yeah,
And,
you're not
and
leaving without something to do.
exactly. Because look, we can, when we're doing readings, and this is my own experience, and I know the experience of my mentors and teachers and wells as well. We're driving the car and we pull up to the intersection. And maybe you've got the gas station to the right and the donut shop on the left and the bank on the other corner. And then maybe you have a bike shop on the other, the other opposite side of the four corners. And the light turns green and you hit the gas and you go. And then 50 feet down the road, you're not seeing that anymore. It's still there, but now it's not
in the distance.
It's in the distance, right? So when we're looking through the window, when we're looking at, I say the chart, people use the Akashic records. We're all basically looking at the same thing.
Yes.
When we're looking through that window of time, we're looking at a still point. We're looking at a still moment. And there are lots of threads of possibilities and it's possibility and probability. There is nothing ever set in stone. We do put a couple of big things into our chart when we're on the other side for our soul expansion and growth that are not typically changeable, but most 95% of our life is changeable.
Well, it's very interesting you say that, because one of the things I talk about is predetermination versus freedom of will. It might be predetermined that I'm going to be a singer, but it's freedom of will. What kind of singer and how I'm going to use my voice is within the context of that. So, and I learned that from a friend of mine who's an astrologer. She goes, you have your chart. She goes, but the chart is a skeleton. You have to fill that. You have to flesh it out. Right. And it's so very true. It's so very true, because when you change something that's in your chart, so say you have karma, right? And you go, okay, well, you know what? I'm going to deal with that karma. That's a thread you're pulling that's going to change the interpretation of everything else that goes along with it.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. My chart, I was meant to be a psychic. That is my life purpose on this planet. But yet I worked for the government for 26 years. But while I was out there delivering mail, I was working with my customers, my clients, but it was okay because I wasn't charging. And the kids would come to me with all their problems, but it was clearly in my chart. But because of the experience that I had with that first card reader, I didn't want to ever do that to someone else, because I made decisions in my life I would not have made. And looking back, I say, well, I wouldn't change it. But at the same time, I've learned that, there's ethics are important in this thing, in this work, for sure.
And we have that choice as to how and when we get to the points that we need to get to, right? So I completely get that. Like, that's amazing. You have been an absolutely phenomenal guest. I am so excited to have had you here today. Can you let people know, please, how can they reach you? How can they find you? And you are global, right? Like, you work distance as well, do you not?
I am. Yes, I am global. I have clients around the world, and I don't know how many countries at this point, but so it doesn't matter where you are in the world. If you have a phone or an internet connection, then I can work with you. And so the best way to reach me is go right to my website, cynthiafontaine.com. Simple. All my social media, if you look Cynthia Fontaine, it's either Cynthia Fontaine or Cynthia Fontaine Psychic. On Clubhouse, it's Cynthia Psychic. So I'm all over the place on social media, but I love when people do sign up for my newsletter, because that's where I really communicate with people when I have things that are coming up, special events, when I have classes and things like that. And you can do that right on my website or through my Socio Tap on Instagram to sign up for my newsletter. And once in a while, I do things for my subscribers only, where I might do a Zoom and invite people and say, come on in and let's have a little party. I'm going to do some readings. I don't do that very often, but I do. And, I do that for no charge, but I do once in a while, I'll do things like that. Just
well, you also have your Clubhouse. You have your Clubhouse platform where you do readings regularly.
Yes, Friday nights on Clubhouse. So although we're changing in May to Thursday nights. So for the rest of April, it's Friday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And my club is All Things Psychic. And we are changing to Thursday nights in May. And we haven't determined the time yet. It's either going to be 8 or 9. We're not sure yet, but p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Because I'm getting when people want group stuff, they want them on Friday nights. And so we're going to switch Clubhouse to Thursday nights and to free up my Friday nights for all the group events I have coming up.
Nice. Well, thank you so much, Cynthia. And yeah, what?
I was going to say, and I do group events also on Zoom and in person. And for that, people would have to contact me directly.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It has been an absolute pleasure, and we hope to have you back. Thank you, everybody, for watching. All of our viewers, come back and join us again on Raising Energy at Rogers, on Rogers TV Roundtable next month. And if you want to find out more about this show, it's rogerstv.com/Raising Energy. Or if you want to find out a little bit more about me, it's raisingenergy.com.